My wife laughed when I lost my job. Not a nervous laugh. Not an awkward one. A real laugh, sharp, loud, and humiliating. 3 months later, I pulled up in a brand new $80,000 car. And she froze like she'd seen a ghost. Folks, Uncle Mickle here. I've told a lot of stories in my life, but this one still sits heavy in my chest every time I replay it. Not because of the money, not because of the car, but because of what broke inside me that day, and what I had to become to survive it. Let me take you back to where it all started. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gray sky, quiet street, the kind of day where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. I came home early, sat at the kitchen table, and waited for my wife, Sarah, to get back from work. I had a folder in my hands. Severance papers. 15 years at the same company, gone in a 10-minute meeting. I wasn't panicking yet. I truly believed marriage meant weathering storms together. When Sarah walked in, she barely looked at me. She tossed her purse down, kicked off her shoes, and asked what I was doing home so early. I told her, calmly, straightforward, no theatrics. And then she laughed. She leaned back against the counter, crossed her arms, and said, "So what are you now, unemployed and useless?" That laugh echoed longer than it should have. I remember the exact sound of it, because that's the moment something inside me cracked, not loudly, not all at once, but enough to change everything. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't even defend myself. I just stood up, folded the papers, and went into the bedroom. She didn't follow. Didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't ask what we were going to do next. That silence was louder than her laugh. I stayed that night, slept on my side of the bed, stared at the ceiling until morning. And when I left the next day, I left quietly. No fight, no goodbye speech. Just a duffel bag and my dignity, whatever was left of it. Now here's the part you need to understand. I wasn't broke. I wasn't reckless. And I wasn't defeated. But I was invisible to the one person who was supposed to see me. 3 months passed. 3 long, lonely months. And when I finally came back, not to beg, not to explain, but to close a chapter, that's when I pulled up in that car. Same driveway, same house, same woman standing on the porch, different man behind the wheel. She ran out barefoot, mouth open, eyes wide, and when I stepped out and handed her those papers, she didn't laugh. She couldn't even speak. And before you jump to conclusions, no, this isn't a fairy tale about money fixing everything. This is a story about respect, about betrayal, about what happens when someone mistakes your patience for weakness. Because the truth is, folks, the job loss wasn't the real beginning. The laugh was. And if you've ever been laughed at when you were already on the ground, you'll understand why this story had only one possible ending. Before everything fell apart, life felt steady. Not exciting, not perfect, just steady enough that you stopped questioning it. Sarah and I had been married for 12 years. Not newlyweds, not old souls either. We lived in a modest 2-story house on a quiet street where neighbors waved but never really knew your business. The kind of place you settle into without realizing you've stopped dreaming bigger. And for a long time, I thought that was enough. I worked logistics for a mid-sized manufacturing company. Same company for 15 years. Clocked in early, clocked out late. Missed a few dinners, missed a couple birthdays. Told myself it was all for us. For stability, for the future. Sarah worked in marketing, flexible hours, decent pay, a little more flair than my routine grind. Most mornings followed the same rhythm. Coffee brewing, news humming low on the TV. Sarah scrolling on her phone while I buttoned my shirt. We'd exchange quick updates about the day ahead. Nothing deep, nothing heavy, just the mechanics of partnership. Looking back now, that should have been my first clue. We didn't fight much, but we didn't really talk either. Not the way people talk when they're still curious about each other. We existed side by side, comfortable, predictable, quiet. On weekends, I handled the lawn, the gutters, the little fixes around the house. Sarah managed the social calendar, dinners with co-workers, networking events, occasional girls' nights. I'd go when invited, smile when needed, and listen more than I spoke. I was proud of being dependable. I thought that was love. There were moments, though. Small ones. Easy to dismiss. She started correcting me in front of people. Little jokes about how I dressed, how I talked, how I wasn't ambitious enough. Always followed by a laugh, so I laughed too. Didn't want to be sensitive. Didn't want to rock the boat. Her phone was always face down. Always on silent. If I asked who she was texting, she'd say, "Work stuff," without looking up. And I believed her, because believing was easier than wondering. At night, she'd fall asleep scrolling. I'd turn off the lamp, lie there listening to her breathe, telling myself this was just how long marriages evolved. Less spark, more routine. That real life wasn't supposed to feel like the movies. And maybe that's true. But here's what I know now. Peace that requires you to shrink yourself isn't peace at all. I still remember one evening, a few months before the job loss. We were sitting on the couch. I mentioned an idea, maybe starting a small consulting thing on the side. Something I'd been thinking about quietly for years. She didn't even look at me. She just said, "That sounds risky," and changed the subject. No curiosity. No encouragement. Just dismissal. I let it go, like I always did, because I thought my role was to provide, not to question, to absorb pressure, not create it, to be solid, unshakable, useful. And as long as I was useful, everything seemed fine. But usefulness has an expiration date when it's the only thing you're valued for. I didn't know it yet, but the foundation I thought we were standing on wasn't built on love or partnership. It was built on convenience, on image, on what I represented, not who I was. And the moment that representation cracked, so did everything else. Now, let me ask you something before I go further. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was off, but you ignored it because you didn't want to believe it? Tell me in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone in this. Because that feeling, that quiet discomfort you explain away, that was already there. Long before the laugh. The day I lost my job wasn't dramatic. No raised voices. No slammed doors. Just a conference room that felt colder than it should have. And a man I'd worked beside for years, sliding a folder across the table without meeting my eyes. They called it restructuring. Market correction. Corporate language for you're expendable now. I nodded. Asked the practical questions. Severance. Insurance. Timeline. I even cracked a polite smile. Like this was all part of some long-term plan I understood better than they did. That's what men like me do. We keep it together in public, fall apart in private. Driving home, my hands were steady on the wheel, but my chest felt tight, like something heavy was sitting there, pressing down slowly. I kept rehearsing how I'd tell Sarah. Calm, confident, no panic, just facts and a plan. I didn't want to scare her. That thought alone should tell you everything. When I walked into the house, it was quiet, too quiet for a weekday afternoon. I sat at the kitchen table, lined the papers up neatly, and waited. Time stretched. Every tick of the clock sounded louder than the last. When she finally came home, you already know what happened. The laugh. The word loser. The way she looked at me like I was something she'd stepped in and couldn't scrape off her shoe fast enough. But here's what you don't know yet. That laugh didn't just hurt. It confirmed something my gut had been whispering for a while. Because after that moment, the little things started clicking into place. The distance. The condescension. The way she'd been pulling away emotionally long before my paycheck stopped. That night, after she went to sleep, I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the house. And for the first time in years, I listened to myself. The next morning, I left early. Not for work, for space. I went to a diner a few miles away, ordered black coffee, and sat in a booth by the window. Watched people come and go. Construction workers, retirees, couples holding hands. I asked myself a simple question. If the roles were reversed, would I have laughed at her? The answer came instantly. No. That realization hurt more than the job loss. Over the next few days, Sarah didn't ask how the job search was going. Didn't ask how I was holding up. She just complained about money, about appearances, about how this wasn't what she signed up for. One evening, she said something that still rings in my ears. I need stability, Mickle. I can't carry dead weight. Dead weight. I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone I barely recognized. Or maybe someone I'd been refusing to see. That's when the instinct kicked in. Not anger. Not revenge. Awareness. I started noticing patterns. She'd leave the room to take calls. Smile at her phone, in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. Dress up more for work events she never invited me to. One night, she came home late, smelling like a cologne I didn't own. I didn't say a word. I wasn't ready yet. Instead, I observed. Quietly. Carefully. Like a man realizing the ground beneath him might not be solid after all. And somewhere in that silence, a switch flipped. I stopped trying to prove my worth to her. Stopped explaining myself. Stopped asking for understanding. I started preparing. Not for reconciliation. Not for confrontation. For the truth. Because when someone shows you who they are at your lowest, you owe it to yourself to believe them. Now, folks, pause for a second. What would you have done in my position? Would you have confronted her right then, demanded answers, tried to fix it? Or would you have waited and watched? Drop your answer below. I'm curious what you would have chosen. Because the path I took next changed everything. I wish I could tell you the truth, came all at once. That there was a single moment, a smoking gun. A clear line where denial ended and reality began. But betrayal doesn't arrive like that. It leaks in, drop by drop, until you're standing in it, wondering how the room got flooded. The first thing I found wasn't dramatic. It was an email notification that popped up on the shared tablet we kept on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping. I was checking the weather. A name flashed across the screen I didn't recognize. Michael R. The subject line was short, familiar, intimate. Miss you already. That was it. No emojis. No explanations. Just 4 words that didn't belong to a coworker. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. My stomach didn't flip either. What I felt instead was a strange calm, like my body had been expecting this and finally got confirmation. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. From that moment on, every memory rewound itself with new meaning. The late nights. The sudden gym memberships. The perfume she never wore around me. The way she'd get irritated when I asked simple questions. It all lined up. That night I waited. Listened to her footsteps. Watched how she moved through the house, like she already lived somewhere else. When she went to shower, I checked her phone. I'm not proud of it, but I needed to know if I was losing my mind. I wasn't. Messages. Weeks worth. Plans. Inside jokes. Complaints about me. About how I was stuck. Unmotivated. Dragging her down. Conversations about money I supposedly couldn't provide anymore. About how she deserved more. Michael worked in finance. Successful. Confident. Expensive taste. Everything I wasn't at that moment. I sat on the edge of the bed while the shower ran and felt something heavy settle in my chest. Not rage. Not sadness. Disappointment. Deep and hollow. This wasn't just an affair. This was contempt. She didn't just betray me. She replaced me. And here's the part that still stings the most. She started this before I lost my job. My unemployment didn't cause the betrayal. It just removed the mask. I scrolled back further. Months. Back to a time when I was still paying the mortgage. Still planning vacations. Still believing we were a team. I felt foolish. But more than that, I felt used. When she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, humming like nothing was wrong, I realized something terrifying. She didn't feel guilty. She felt relieved. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room until dawn, staring at the wall, replaying 12 years of my life, wondering where I'd gone wrong, wondering when love turned into convenience, wondering how someone could share a bed with you while planning an exit behind your back. And that's when the lowest thought crept in. Maybe she's right. Maybe I was dead weight. Maybe I had failed. Maybe I deserved this. That thought scared me more than the betrayal itself. Because that's how people lose themselves, not through one big heartbreak, but through the slow erosion of self-worth. I need you to understand something here. This wasn't just betrayal. This was my whole life crumbling. Have you ever been blindsided like this? Someone you trusted completely, Just destroying everything? Share your story below if you've been there. Let's heal together. By sunrise, I had a decision to make. Confront her and blow everything up, or keep quiet and take control of my own narrative. I watched the light creep through the curtains and knew one thing for sure. The man she thought was weak was about to disappear, and the man replacing him would never beg for respect again. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. There's a difference between reacting and deciding. Reaction is loud, messy, emotional. Decision is quiet, cold, final. And sometime around 6 in the morning, sitting alone in that living room, I made mine. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I'd already given her 12 years of honesty. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of watching me break. If she thought I was finished, if she thought I was beaten, I was going to let her believe that. Because belief is powerful, and underestimation is a gift. I packed a duffel bag that afternoon. Just essentials, clothes, documents, a few personal items she wouldn't notice missing. When Sarah asked where I was going, I told her I needed space to figure things out. She didn't argue, didn't ask where I'd stay, just nodded like this was convenient for her too. That told me everything. I moved into a small extended stay motel near the industrial park. Nothing fancy, clean enough, quiet enough. The kind of place where nobody asks questions and everyone keeps to themselves. That anonymity helped, gave me room to breathe. For the first week, I didn't chase jobs. I chased clarity. I walked, a lot, thought about who I was before I became useful. Before my value was measured by a paycheck or someone else's approval. I replayed moments from my life where I'd swallowed my pride just to keep the peace, where I'd chosen silence over self-respect. That stopped. Then I started planning. Not revenge, not yet. Repositioning. I took inventory of my skills. 15 years of logistics, vendor negotiations, process optimization, crisis management. The things I'd done quietly while others took credit. I reached out to old contacts, people who respected my work, not my title. Conversations I'd put off for years because I was too busy being stable. Funny how life forces your hand. Within 2 weeks, I had freelance consulting offers. Small at first, then bigger. Companies willing to pay for experience instead of resumes. I worked harder than I ever had. Not out of desperation, but out of focus. No distractions. No drama. Just execution. At night, I still felt the weight of what I'd lost. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Betrayal doesn't disappear just because you're busy. But instead of drowning in it, I used it. Every slight, every insult, every laugh. Fuel burns cleaner when it's controlled. I didn't post online. Didn't update anyone. Didn't let rumors reach Sarah. As far as she knew, I was floundering, struggling, probably begging friends for leads. Let her think that. Because while she was planning a future without me, I was building one that didn't include her approval. One night, about a month in, I sat in my car after a long day and realized something had shifted. My shoulders weren't tense. My breathing was steady. The doubt that had crept in during those early days had lost its grip. I didn't feel small anymore. I felt ready. That's when I made the final decision. I wasn't going to disappear quietly, and I wasn't going to explode dramatically. I was going to return once, on my terms, with facts, with dignity, with closure, not to hurt her, but to reclaim myself. And yes, I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd misjudged, because sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is success delivered in silence. Here's where I made my choice. Now I want to know, do you believe in revenge, or do you believe in walking away? What's the right move when someone destroys your trust? Comment below. I want to hear both sides. Because what happened next wasn't loud, wasn't cruel, but it was unforgettable. The morning I went back, I didn't feel nervous. That surprised me. No shaking hands, no racing thoughts, just a calm I hadn't felt in years. I put on a clean jacket, checked my reflection once, and walked outside. The car was waiting, deep gray, low hum, brand new. Not flashy, just confident. I sat there for a second before turning the key. Not to hype myself up. To remind myself why I was doing this. This wasn't revenge. This was punctuation. I drove to the house slowly. Same route I'd taken 1,000 times. Same stop sign. Same tree on the corner. Only this time, I wasn't wondering if I was enough. I already knew. I pulled into the driveway just as Sarah stepped onto the porch with her phone in her hand. She looked thinner, sharper, like someone living half a life. When she saw the car, she frowned, confused. Then her eyes found me behind the wheel. Her face drained of color. I stepped out, closed the door gently. The sound echoed louder than it should have. She didn't speak at first, just stared. Then she laughed, a nervous one this time, and said, Is this a rental?" I shook my head. She walked closer, barefoot, mouth slightly open, the confidence she used to wear so easily gone. "Mickle," she said, quieter now. "What's going on?" I reached into the car and pulled out a folder, thicker than the one I'd brought home 3 months earlier. I handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Everything," I said. She opened it. Bank statements, contracts, proof of income, and finally, the last page, divorce papers. Signed, dated, ready. Her hands started to shake. This isn't funny," she said. "I'm not joking." She looked up at me then, really looked, and I saw it hit her, the realization that the man standing in front of her wasn't the one she'd laughed at. She tried to explain, stumbled over words, said things like, "I was stressed, and I didn't mean it like that, and Michael didn't mean anything." I raised my hand. "Don't," I said. "Calm. Even. This isn't a conversation. It's a courtesy." That stopped her. I told her I knew. How long? With whom? I didn't list details. I didn't need to. Her eyes told me everything. "I loved you," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but you didn't respect me." Silence swallowed the driveway. Then she asked a question she couldn't stop herself from asking. "Is there someone else?" I smiled just slightly. "There's a life," I said, "and you're not in it." That's when it broke. She cried, apologized, promised change, reached for my arm. I stepped back, not out of anger, out of finality. And this is the moment everything changed. "Tell me, are you rooting for me right now? Or do you think I went too far? Be honest in the comments. Uncle Mickle can take it." I walked back to the car. Didn't rush. Didn't look back. The engine started smooth, quiet, powerful. As I pulled away, I saw her in the mirror, standing alone, holding papers she never thought she'd read. And for the first time since that laugh, I felt free. The days after that confrontation were strangely quiet. No explosions, no dramatic phone calls, just silence, the kind that settles and once everything that needed to be said already has been. I didn't block Sarah. I didn't need to. She texted a few times. Long messages at first. Apologies stacked on top of explanations. Promises about therapy. About starting over. About how she finally understood what she'd almost lost. I read them once. Then I archived the thread. Not out of cruelty. Out of self-preservation. Because healing doesn't happen when you keep reopening the wound just to see if it still hurts. The divorce moved faster than I expected. Maybe because there was nothing left to argue over. No kids. No shared dreams anymore. Just assets and memories that needed to be divided cleanly. I let go of the house. Let her keep it. Some people thought that was generous. Others thought it was foolish. But to me, that place was already empty. Walls don't hold love. People do. I moved again. This time into a small place closer to the city. Simple. Sunlight in the mornings. Quiet at night. I cooked for myself. Walked without a destination. Relearned what it felt like to exist without explaining myself to anyone. Work stabilized. Then flourished. Consulting turned into contracts. Contracts turned into a firm. I hired 2 people. Then 3. I wasn't chasing money. I was building something honest. Something that couldn't be taken away with a laugh. But success didn't erase the damage. It just gave me space to process it. There were nights I'd wake up thinking about moments I'd ignored. Red flags I'd painted over with loyalty. Conversations I should have had earlier. I let myself feel that regret without letting it own me. That's an important distinction. Pain can teach you, or it can trap you. I ran into Sarah once, months later, at a grocery store. We made eye contact. She looked tired. Not broken, just worn down by reality. We nodded. Nothing more. And that was enough. I didn't feel victorious. I felt complete. Because closure isn't about winning. It's about no longer needing answers. Looking back now, I wonder if I'd do it all the same way again. What about you? If you could go back and handle your worst betrayal differently, would you? Or was the pain necessary to become who you are now? Let me know below. These days, my life is quieter. But it's mine. I choose who has access. I choose where my energy goes. And I never confuse being needed with being loved again. The laugh still echoes sometimes. But it doesn't hurt the way it used to. Now it reminds me of the moment I stopped begging for approval and started respecting myself. Time has a way of softening sharp edges. Not by erasing what happened, but by putting it in its proper place. When I look back on that chapter of my life now, I don't feel bitterness. I feel clarity. The kind that only comes after you've been stripped down to your essentials and forced to decide who you really are. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Losing the job hurt. The betrayal hurt deeper. But losing my self-respect would have destroyed me. I stayed quiet for a long time because I thought silence meant strength. I thought endurance was the same thing as loyalty. But there's a line. And when someone laughs at your lowest moment, they've crossed it. What I learned is simple, but it took me years to understand. You don't owe anyone your suffering. You don't owe anyone endless chances. And you certainly don't owe respect to someone who treats your pain like a joke. Walking away wasn't weakness. Waiting wasn't cowardice. And returning on my own terms wasn't revenge. It was closure. I didn't win because I had more money. I won because I stopped negotiating my worth. And if you're listening to this right now, carrying your own quiet humiliation, your own unspoken betrayal, hear me when I say this. Being underestimated can be a blessing. It gives you room to rebuild in peace. So here's my final question for you, and I really want to hear your thoughts. Is it better to forgive and move on, or to make sure they understand exactly what they lost? There's no wrong answer. Drop it in the comments. Because every story like this has two endings, the one they expect, and the one you choose. So that's my story, folks. If it resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far Uncle Mickle's voice travels. And here's the last thing I'll leave you with. Wisdom earned the hard way. Never let someone else's laughter decide your value.